Hey guys, before we get into this episode, I wanted to give you a heads up and apologize that the audio was not up to the highest caliber that I would like. There were some issues on both sides. I believe our app was having some problems. So we tried to clean it up. It's still an amazing show, but just wanted to give you the heads up. Bear with us. We've got it fixed for next week. Have you ever wondered how you can turn your dream honeymoon into a luxurious getaway without breaking the bank? Well, on today's episode, I sit down with Elliot Rosenberg, the founder of Hack My Honeymoon. He's helped couples experience unforgettable honeymoons in destinations like the Maldives and Bora Bora, all by using points and miles, all while providing a boutique level of service. And here's the best part, it's accessible to anyone, even if you've never earned a single point before. Whether you're newly engaged or deep into wedding planning, tune in to discover how you can unlock a world of luxury travel. This episode is packed with insider tips and strategies that could save you thousands. So, if you know someone getting married, make sure they listen in as well, because their honeymoon dreams are about to get a whole lot bigger while making their travel costs a whole lot smaller. Welcome, everybody, to the Revolutionizing Your Journey podcast. I am your host, DeAndre Coke. I have a great guest for you guys today, Elliot Rosenberg. He's the founder of Hack My Honeymoon. And Elliot actually specializes in helping couples plan unforgettable luxury honeymoons to destinations like the Maldives, Bora Bora, and beyond. And he does so without breaking the bank. And of course, we know this is using the points and miles world. So we're excited to dive into his travel tips and strategies for really making honeymoons truly extraordinary. And I would say probably going beyond the dreams or the imaginations of what a couple would have imagined before being able to enter the points and miles world. And I thought this was going to be super fitting as well, because if you've been a fan of the podcast and been listening, you know that Taryn and myself were engaged. We actually have our wedding coming up next year. And so we absolutely plan to use points and miles for our own honeymoon, because I mean, that's how we basically travel today. And so I'm excited to glean some knowledge from Elliot. I'm excited for you guys to listen as well. And tell your friends that you know of that are getting married or they're planning their honeymoons, because I think this will be a great episode to understand how points and miles can make an incredible, incredible honeymoon. So, Elliot, welcome to the show.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, DeAndre. And I'm equally looking forward to learning from you. I'm sure that you being in this process have already thought about how you can optimize it.
Absolutely have, Elliot. So I'm super excited for the mutual exchange of knowledge here. So before we get into the points and miles and all that, I'd love to get some background on you, because you're in an area right now that I don't think I've had a guest on the show in this same spot as you are. So please, where are you currently? Where are you from? And how did you get into the points and miles world?
I am currently in Goa, India, which is a beach tourism kind of laid back state in India. Doesn't really match the typical image that a lot of people have in their heads of what India is, but that's why my wife and I love it. We recently moved here, and I've been in India for the past 8 or 9 years, actually. And I'm originally from LA, but I have lived abroad for about 13 years. So, other than India, I have lived in Brazil and Chile, and yeah, we could talk about how I got into all this. Actually, when I was in Brazil, I was running an alternative travel company that was, you could think like Airbnb, but for Brazilian, what are called favelas, which many people would see as slums, but are actually informal communities that have a ton going for them, really vibrant, welcoming, warm places that get overlooked and have a bad rap. And our objective was to change, especially foreigners' perceptions of these places, and at the same time generate sustainable income for families via homestays, hosting. So just like an Airbnb experience, maybe not getting an entire place to yourself, but a room in someone's home. And this was back in 2013, 2014, in preparation for the 2014 FIFA World Cup. So the accommodation rates were insanely expensive in Rio de Janeiro, where we were, and we were helping people save a lot of money and at the same time experience a culture that they would otherwise never have access to, and do that in a way that would benefit the local communities. So I did that for a couple of years, and the kind of genesis of my points journey was fortuitously around that time, someone introduced me to this whole beautiful world, and I was simultaneously kind of feeling burnt out by my work, and I was also really jealous of my customers because a lot of my customers were traveling around Brazil, Latin America, the world, and while I was in a gorgeously beautiful place, probably I think the biggest or the most beautiful big city on the planet, which is Rio. Um, I wanted to have the experience that a lot of them were having. So, right around the time when I was kind of at peak burnout, I got introduced to this. I dove like head into it, read every blog, watched every video, talked to every person that I could, and I decided that I wanted to leave my business and kind of experience something new every day. And that was taking a backpack and going to 17 countries in Asia over 15 months. And that was largely funded by the uh, points and miles that I earned from credit card sign up bonuses that I had learned about just at that time.
That's awesome. So, I mean, by chance, do you remember? I know this was sounds like close to 10 years ago, but by chance, do you happen to remember how long of a ramp up period? So, from when you learned about points and miles and said, "Hey, I'm going to start building these points," to uh, to the start of that 15-month journey, what that period was, and then the second thing, by chance, do you happen to remember how many points in total you accrued to start this 15-month journey of just backpacking through countries in Asia?
Yeah, I think it took me about 6 months from zero, which was just getting introduced to it, to actually starting my trip, landing in the first country. And, that was less because I was waiting to accrue the points and more just because I needed a little bit of time at home to like decompress and reconnect with my family before heading out. So I probably could have done it in less time. And I think that someone listening now doesn't necessarily need to wait 6 months before or after they get started to actually start traveling. Though I would say probably the more time you have, the better to a certain extent. And number of points, I would guess that. And so the other thing is that I didn't stop accruing points while I was traveling. I continued to sign up for more cards and go after offers while I was traveling during that time. So, like, let's say from when I started to when I ended that trip, which was almost 2 years, I'm sure I would have accrued more than 1 million points.
That's awesome. That's absolutely incredible. So that started your points and miles journey. And so, how did you land on India specifically, which is where you live now? Is there, I mean, did something call to you there? Did you just really love that you found a beautiful space? Is that I believe that's where you met your wife. So did you meet her and you're like, "Oh, I'm staying." So what made you say, "Hey, wow, I'm gonna plant my seeds in India versus a Bali or a Thailand or one of those other countries that you probably hear more people visiting and staying?"
For sure. I'd say so. First of all, I did not meet my wife until maybe 4 years in. So it was definitely not her, unless, destiny was bringing us together. Um, but I was really interested in the Indian growth story and the idea that there was, there was, and I think still is a moment in India's development trajectory where there's a ton of economic growth, starting from a very low base, but also lots of opportunity and a chance to ensure that that growth is more equitable and not just concentrated in the hands of a few billionaires. So that was what attracted me, and the fact that India had a lot of homegrown tech talent and great great stories, examples of businesses that had scaled to serve the masses in India. So that's what attracted me initially, and then meeting my wife back in 2020 was, of course, a piece of the puzzle that solidified our connection to India.
Very cool, Elliot. So let's get into this. What exactly is Hack My Honeymoon? What's your objective? And love to start pulling out some knowledge as to why would a couple want to work with you? What are you able to accomplish? How and how would you recommend someone, if they wanted to do it themselves, start building their own strategy to be able to use points and miles for their own honeymoon?
Sure. So, Hack My Honeymoon is a boutique agency that helps engaged couples to have a luxury honeymoon experience, particularly luxury flights and accommodation at a fraction of the cost. So, effectively, the same kind of savings that you've been talking about on your podcast for many episodes, but applied specifically to the wedding planning journey and this one big blowout milestone trip that we are uh, culturally accustomed to taking immediately after that wedding, right? So it's kind of same concept, but with a very specific niche, specific niche and use case, and we do it in a way that maximizes the wedding planning process and doesn't require you as the couple to really have any understanding of how all this works. So we will help you to pick a destination that matches your travel preferences and travel goals, and then craft a points earning strategy that allows you to quickly earn hundreds of thousands of points to fund the trip that you're looking to have. And then once you get those points, we help you to book everything, particularly flights and hotels, as much as possible. We just do it for you. And ultimately, even after your trip, we'll make sure that you avoid paying annual fees on a lot of those premium travel cards that you would have signed up for, uh, assuming that you're no longer getting the value out of them.
Awesome. So you take it from the start to the end there, or allow them to continue the journey as well. So, question of obviously in the points and miles world, right? When we're talking through financial responsibility, and I always have to plug that piece, being a financial advisor myself. Uh, do you, do, are you having them spend more, or do you make sure that they're still spending within their means, or are you leveraging the wedding expenses as well within this mix?
Yes. So we are never going to encourage, we'll explicitly discourage people from spending any more than they otherwise would have budgeted on their wedding and their regular living expenses. We will just ask them to move spending onto new or different cards to optimize what they earn from that already budgeted spending. And of course, anyone who's remotely likely to end up paying interest on a card, carry a balance, pay late fees because they miss payment due dates, is not the right person for this. So the same kinds of disclaimers apply whether it's a honeymoon or any random family or solo trip.
Perfect. So, can you share some of the really cool destinations or honeymoons that you have planned for some of your clientele over the last few years?
Yeah, one really cool one was a couple from LA who wanted to do a safari plus beach holiday. So we took them in Qatar Airways Q Suite, which is by most accounts the fanciest, nicest business class in the world. You have like sliding doors, a barrier comes down, and you can kind of join your seats together into a bed, and incredible service, dine on demand. So we took them from LA to Nairobi in Q Suite, and on the way back, from Tanzania, again in Q Suite. So that would have been maybe $8,000 in cash. And I think they each paid about $200 in taxes and fees for for those flights. And then the beach holiday component, they were in Zanzibar, which is a really cool island destination off the coast of Tanzania that has a lot of really cool history and is like a melting pot of different cultures. And they stayed at the Park Hyatt Zanzibar, which is, $500 to $1,000 a night hotel. So that's an example of one of them. Another would be an all-inclusive beach holiday in Tulum. And we've had couples go to the Maldives and stay in overwater villas. I could keep going.
So I know that you just recently got married within the last few years. I'm curious, where did you and your wife go for your honeymoon, especially because you're based out in India, right? So your options are going to be very, very different, or there's a lot of destinations that are a lot closer to you than they are where we are here in the States. So I'm curious, where did you guys go for your honeymoon, and do you happen to remember how you used points and miles yourself to do it?
Yeah, it was only about a couple years ago, and we being in India have different destinations that are more accessible to us. So the super exotic destination closest to us is the Maldives, and we ended up going there. Going from Mumbai, where we were at the time, to Male, the capital, is like a 2.5 hour flight. So that was very easy, and then taking a seaplane, which is very common for most Maldives experiences because most of the resorts there are private islands and either require seaplanes, local flights, and or speedboat transfers. So this time we took a a seaplane, and we stayed at Le Méridien, Maldives, and we stayed there because there was an incredible offer. The resort had just opened, and a cool thing to be aware of is that if you are tracking new resorts opening dates, I've noticed that maybe intentionally to incentivize guests to choose a new resort where maybe they're kind of like ironing out the kinks in terms of service, there will be lower prices, probably in terms of both cash and points for newly opened resorts. So we saw that the Le Méridien Maldives was opening, and I think I think that was September or October of 2021, and we wanted to go in about a year later in 2022. So usually the first few months is when they're ironing out the kinks, and I'd say maybe 6 months in they would have figured out most of their processes. So we took advantage of the incredible low points rates there. It was honest. It was like 30 or 35,000 Marriott points a night for that, which is insane. Like, you couldn't stay in a lot of like Courtyard by Marriott's in the US for as few points. But you can have a private island overwater villa that's like, close to $1,000 a night for 30 to 35,000 points a night. And Marriott being fifth night free on award stays, points bookings was an extra boost. So I think I had signed up for an Amex Marriott business card, and that had like 100,000 point bonus. It's even much higher now. And with that, and maybe a few extra points that I had lying around, was able to stay 6 nights at Le Méridien. We did 3 nights in the Overwater Villa, and we just wanted to switch it up. So we did another 3 nights in one of the beach private pool villas. And we had an excellent, truly memorable, lovely, tropical, dreamy experience.
That is absolutely incredible. The Maldives hold a special place for me because we that's actually where Tara and I got engaged. So way back early in the show, I don't remember exactly. I feel like it's episode probably, I don't know, 4, 5, or 6. We have a whole breakdown of our Maldives experience, but the Maldives was absolutely incredible, right? Because you fly in. Now, granted, we had to do a whole bunch of things. We flew through Doha, Qatar Airways, all the things to get to Male. But we stayed at the Park Hyatt, And so the Park Hyatt was an incredible stay. We had the beach villa there, and we had the overwater villa at a different hotel. So we got to see both. I actually really, really loved the beach villa. I thought you see the overwater, right? That catches the eye, but the beach villas are super cool. I think they're so underrated, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. I stayed at the Park Hyatt as well. Before I met my wife, I did a honeymoon, is what I'll call it. A honeymoon with my bro. Not my like real life bro, but just a close friend. And we were for 4 nights at the Park Hyatt and got one of those beach villas, and it's like literally on the beach. Like you can walk out from your pool, and 10 feet in front of you is just crystal clear, silent, beautiful beach, white sands. Yeah.
Absolutely incredible stay. And I've seen the Meridian when I've gone back to look at point stays in the Maldives. I don't quote me on this, but I feel like it's 150 to 200,000 points a night now, or higher, or something crazy like that. Unless I could be wrong.
It's actually one of the better priced ones from last checks. It's like, Marriott has this kind of like secret award chart that ever since they abolished award charts, like after acquiring SPG, there are sort of hidden award categories, and it's like it ends up varying between like 40 and maybe 70K a night. So that's really not that bad. They're definitely, you've got the Saint Regis W, others in the Maldives as a part of Marriott Bonvoy that are far more expensive. So it's probably like the best value option if you have Marriott points in the Maldives.
That might actually be what I was thinking of. Was I know that I've seen the W in the St. Regis, so maybe I just go lump all the Marriott together with that higher tier. So awesome, Elliot. So moving on a little bit, can you provide? So let's just say there's a couple that they're like, you know what, we want to hack our honeymoon. We want to use points and miles to be able to do this. And we're at the very end of the show. We're gonna get all your details and talk through your service and all that in a little more detail. But let's just say you have someone that's more of the DIYer, right? They listen to the podcast, they read all the blogs, they do all the things. They're like, we can figure this out ourselves. Right, exactly. Exactly. What would be your suggestions for them on how they can go from never earning a single point to being able to fly Q suites or wherever it may be to wherever destination, right? What would be your example of how they should do it from the start?
So we're just going to assume that they're financially responsible, organized, not carrying balances. They have some credit history that makes them eligible for premium travel cards. And I'd say the first step then is just doing a little self-reflection and a little conversation as a couple as to what do you even want to have, because accruing points really without a goal, especially if you're just starting out, is not a great idea. I see a lot of people fall into that trap, and they're like, I've got 500,000 Amex points and I don't even know what to do with them. So we want to avoid that and make sure that the path that they're taking is aligned to the goal, while still being flexible and not like zeroing in on a particular resort and a particular flight and specific dates. So understand, like, what kind of experience do you want to have? Maybe less like exact destination, but do you want to be on a beach? Do you want to be in the mountains? Do you want to be in a hotel? Do you want to be in a vacation rental? Does flying in a lie flat business class seat for a long flight make a difference to you? All these things you need to ask yourself. So let's start with that, and then high level strategy is to open cards with transferable points like Chase, Amex, and Capital One, since that's just going to give you the most options. If you're not familiar with transfer partners, Chase, Amex, Citi, Capital One, a few others have partnerships with airlines and hotels where you can transfer those credit card points, usually at like a 1-to-1 ratio, and get way more value than just redeeming them in the travel portal of the bank. So that's the way that you're going to earn your points. And you need to also understand, if you're planning a wedding, what are your like major expenses going to be along the way, with paying a deposit on a venue, paying DJ, caterers, florists, etc., understanding which of those vendors can even accept credit cards, ideally without additional fees, and then planning your card application strategy around your calendar of expenses, because it might be that you have some huge expenses all coming due at the same time, and you want to be able to take advantage of that to earn the really big welcome bonus offers on new cards. So at a high level, it's that. And if if you have a small business, and even if you don't have a small business, but you you are someone who maybe is realizing now that, hey, selling my old clothes on eBay or Facebook Marketplace or freelancing is actually a small business. If you're eligible for small business cards, which is pretty much most people who just say that they're eligible, you don't have to have any revenue to do that. Uh, then opening small business cards is great, because usually the offers are going to be more lucrative and not have as much of an impact on you being able to get more cards in the future, because small business cards, for the most part, do not actually report on your personal credit. So that's another part of the strategy. If you're comfortable, it would be really helpful to go after, and then also consider the value of the card benefits. Depending on what kind of experience you want to have, there can be things like free night certificates, automatic elite status, especially if you want to do like a resort stay at something like Le Meridien. Then having cards that give you instant automatic um, hotel loyalty program elite status can get you things like free suite upgrades, free breakfast, and that can save you a lot of money too. And then assuming that we have both uh, both partners in the couple playing along, then you can you can have 1 plus 1 equal to not just 2, but maybe 2.5, maybe even 3, by using referral bonuses. A lot of banks and cards have referral bonuses, and there's no problem with referring someone you know, or even a fiance, a family member. That's what the banks are actually incentivizing. And programs like Amex, Chase will allow you to even refer others to cards that you don't have, and still earn a referral bonus, as opposed to saying like, I have card A and now my partner also needs to get card A. So that flexibility is also awesome for maximizing.
I'm going to cut in real quick here. I think it's really cool to highlight a couple of the points you brought up before we keep going. So we refer to what you just mentioned, right, about referring your partner, or it could be a friend, a family member, right? We prefer that to the player one, player two role. So for the listeners out there, if this might be your first episode that you're catching, if you ever hear someone talk about, my player two, that's exactly what Elliot was just saying, right? Being able to refer your partner, your spouse, your friend, it could be your mom, your dad, whoever it may be, because like you mentioned, the 1 plus 1 equals 3 in this place because of the fact you get the referral bonuses and those type of things. Now, stepping back a little bit also, you mentioned about fees around vendors that charge for or that allow you to use a credit card. So I'm very curious, Elliot, what would be your recommendation? Let's say, we've got a venue and this venue is saying, let's just say the venue is $10,000. I'm just going to throw a number out there, right? $10,000 for the venue. And they say, hey, it's a 2% or let's say 3%, because probably 3% is the highest you're going to see, 3% fee to use a credit card. What would you say to one of your clients that's debating, well, should I spend this extra 3% to use the card or should I not? What would be your advice there?
The math is going to be entirely personal to that individual couple situation, but oftentimes the math could make a lot of sense. Like if paying an extra $300 on a $10,000 charge unlocks $5,000 or $10,000 of free travel for you, then that might make sense. I'm not going to explicitly push a couple to pay an extra fee over and above an annual fee that they're spending on, because it kind of goes against the mantra of like, let's not spend more than we otherwise would be spending. Of course, there are card annual fees, but those come with benefits too that can be valuable. But in this case, it's just helping you to meet the minimum spending requirement to earn a big welcome bonus. So that's entirely a personal question, and really, however you do the math and whatever you're comfortable with is how you should take a decision there.
That's a great way to put it. And being a numbers guy, right? I like to break down the numbers as to how this can make sense. And I think there is a realm of what could make sense or not, like you mentioned, right? Because going back to what you said about the business cards, cards such as the Chase Business Unlimited or Chase Business Preferred or whatever it may be, those typically that you get, or even the Amex Business Platinums and Business Gold, they usually have a much higher spend to get their sign-up bonus. So their spends could be 6, 8, 10,000, 15,000 in 3 months in order to get this very large. I mean, the Amex Platinum I've seen as high as 250,000 points on one sign-up bonus, right? But you might have to spend $15,000 in 3 months. Well, if your venue is going to charge you $300 to get 250,000 Amex points, which could turn into, like you mentioned, $5,000 or $10,000 worth of free travel, that $300 is absolutely worth it. But the other way I look at it as well, and this goes into a little bit more of the math side of points and miles, is let's say it's a 3% fee and you're using a card like the Capital One Venture X or the Chase Business Unlimited. So Chase Business Unlimited pays 1.5% or 1.5x on everything, and Capital One Venture X pays 2% on everything, right? If you get 2 of that 3% eaten up, all you have to do is make sure you redeem your points for enough to exceed that value, right? So to simplify it, if the credit card fee is 3% and you have a card that pays you 1.5%, right? So that means that you've basically gotten $150 worth of value for that $300 you paid. All you have to do is redeem those same 10,000 points for at least 2x, and that means that you're going to get that same 3% back in value. And if you redeem it for 3x or 4x or 5x or 10x, you're going to get more value for that. So the math can still work out, but you have to use the right cards, like you said, right? So either you're getting a sign-up bonus or you're using a card that's going to get you the right amount of points versus the spend that you have. And I just wanted to highlight that because I think when a couple is looking at the numbers, they might say, well, am I going to pay this extra $300? And there's times when it can make sense if you have the right card. There's times that it can't, and that's big to point out.
Yeah. And there's one other hack or piece of the strategy that is actually not necessarily dependent on credit cards. And a lot of people don't realize this. It's that if your wedding venue happens to be a hotel that's part of a large hotel group with a hotel loyalty program, then oftentimes there are programs specifically or incentives specifically for earning on the spending that you do for your events, whether it's a wedding or a conference, whatever. And there's usually some multiple of 2-3 points per dollar that you spend that you can earn back in hotel points. So that's number one. And then number two is, regardless of your venue, if you have a hotel room block for the wedding for your guests to stay at, this is something that's like off the books and is not, I don't think it's publicly promoted, but I've heard of others being able to do this, is that you can negotiate with your event coordinator at the hotel. Again, if it's a part of one of these major hotel groups with a worthwhile loyalty program like a Hyatt, Marriott, Hilton, IHG, and say, for all of the guests from my wedding who stay in my room block, I would like the points from their stays to be credited into my loyalty account. And that's something that doesn't cost the hotel anything extra. So, in your negotiation on the room block rate, I would probably throw that in at the end from a negotiating strategy perspective. And it's probably not going to really harm your guests at all, because what are the odds of all of your guests being Hilton loyalists or Marriott loyalists? who are going to actually use those points. And that being said, the points from one single stay in and of themselves are probably going to be mostly useless. You need to have probably accrued a significant number of stays to get enough points for even a single night anywhere that you'd want to stay. So it's not like you're really stealing from your guests if you do this. And if you have a big wedding party all staying at one hotel, then that could easily be 100,000 plus points that you can use toward your honeymoon. And then you can stay at any of the other properties, more or less, around the world that are part of the 7,000 Marriott properties or 10,000 Wyndham properties that exist.
Wow, that's really good advice that I didn't actually give much thought to this until you mentioned it. Right, like what if you had the IHG, I think it's the Premier One card, right, that gets you 26x points on IHG stays or spending, and you had your, most people hear of IHG, they're like, well, what hotels are IHG? Well, you probably know of Holiday Inns, Holiday Inn Expresses, but they also have Intercontinentals, Iberostar, Six Senses. I mean, the Six Senses Maldives looks like an amazing property. Right, so like you could have a wedding at this like a beautiful IHG property, and then if you're charging your IHG card on these expenses and getting 26x points, like that is absolutely insane. Like I don't even why, but that didn't even cross my mind. That could be a huge value to people.
Yeah, you could, have your wedding room block or wedding at a pretty basic hotel to save money or whatever reason it's convenient for your guests, and then turn that into a very luxury stay at a place like Six Senses or Intercontinental somewhere 10,000 miles away. And of course, if you have one of those credit cards, those hotel credit cards, then it would really multiply your earnings on the spend for your venue. And then if it's a card that gives you higher tier elite status, then that's an additional multiplier on the points that you're earning from your wedding room block, because automatically someone who's, say, diamond member is going to earn just twice as much from all stays than someone who's just starting out in the program.
Hey, it's DeAndre here, and we're going to interrupt this episode real quick to tell you about two great opportunities for all of you. First, join our private Facebook community to connect with fellow points and miles enthusiasts, get exclusive tips and updates, as well as get your questions answered directly by me and others in the community. And if you're looking to level up your points and miles skills, we've partnered with Lux Travel Hacks to offer you 50% off their online course that will teach you all the basics you need to know to learn how to travel in business or first class, all for less than you'd pay for economy. Don't forget to use the code BOLDLYGO at checkout. You'll find all the details and links to both of these in the show notes. Now, let's get back to our episode.
So Elliot, someone comes to you and they're like, "Hey Elliot, I already know the points and mile stuff. I've got my Delta Reserve card that's got 200,000 Delta miles on it. What's your response to that? How does that play into the ability to hack my honeymoon?" I know you already touched on this a little bit with the transferable points, but I want to come back to that. So many people think they're in the points and miles game because they've got the American Airlines Barclays card or the Delta Reserve card or whatever it may be.
I'd say that happens a lot. Like I speak to a lot of clients or prospective clients who already have some card or some loyalty status, and most of the time they're doing it pretty suboptimally. So we will try to like take advantage of whatever they have, but that being said, the biggest earnings are going to come from opening new cards and putting your living and wedding expenses on those cards and earning big sign-up bonuses, and not necessarily spending in a not so optimal way just because you have loyalty status or you have elite status on Delta, or you have elite status on American. So we'll do the most that we can, but there's also like a lot of kind of re-education that has to happen to make sure that people are actually getting the most bang for their buck.
Now, when it comes to working with couples, are there any common misconceptions around using their points and miles for planning out a luxury honeymoon that you've had to navigate around, or any really specific tips or strategies or additional strategies you have to help them optimize their points and miles usage?
Common misconceptions and tips. So let's say common misconceptions, first of all, like you don't need to leave the next day after your wedding for your honeymoon. That's just uh, a random cultural convention, and it doesn't really serve you that much. It just makes things a lot harder. Like the more open-minded and flexible that you can be with the kinds of destinations you're going to go to, the routes that you're going to take, the dates that you're going to actually take your trip, the way easier it'll be to get incredible value out of this experience. Another thing is that you really need to consider the full costs of going on a honeymoon, and using points is mostly going to give you great value on flights and hotels. But things like meals, activities, entry fees for museums or national parks, that's usually not going to be a good way to use your points. And you have to factor that into the budget. So yeah, there are cases where we can give you a nearly free honeymoon, but that would mean more like staying at an all-inclusive where all of your food and drinks and activities are going to be a part of the points rate. And I know that you and Taryn love to stay at all-inclusives in Mexico and whatnot. So that's one example. It's one possibility. But for someone who, say, wants to go to Europe, there aren't that many all-inclusives in Europe, and you're going to be spending a lot of money on other things outside of flights and hotels. So keep that in mind. And then last thing is that honeymoons don't just need to be like this cultural stereotype of tropical resort, lay back, drink, and stare at the waves. For a lot of people, that may be nice, but there are things besides flights and hotels in these kinds of like tropical beachy destinations that you could unlock using points. Things like safaris. There are like all-inclusive safaris that can be booked using, say, Marriott points in Masai Mara, or Virgin points in South Africa. There are vacation rentals, things like Vacasa, which is not as well known as Airbnb, but there's a great redemption option there when using Wyndham points that you could get from Capital One or City points. And then even things like cruises. Virgin Voyages is a really cool option for doing cruises in the Mediterranean and the Caribbean. So it's not just that stereotypical like lay on a beach experience that you need to have. So those are the common misconceptions or myths that I'd love to bust. In terms of tips, just at a high level, start early. The earlier on you start in the process, the easier it'll be to take advantage of earning points from all of your wedding spending, and then you'll have a longer period of your just regular recurring living expenses, dining, grocery, utilities, gas, whatnot, that you can put onto new cards to earn points. And starting early also will make it easier to find points availability for the really aspirational types of flights, for business class lie flat, and also hotels, really fancy like ultra luxury $1,000 plus a night type hotels using points. Often that availability fills up quickly, and the best time to book is like as soon as the calendar opens, like 11 months in advance. And then last thing is just be flexible. So if you're really rigid in saying, I have to go on this date, on this route, stay in this resort, then it's going to make things a lot harder. Once you've actually earned those points, and availability might have changed, or devaluations might have happened, alliances might have changed in airlines, and whatever you got really emotionally attached to for your future honeymoon experience may no longer be a good value, or may not even be possible anymore. So you get way better results if you pick experiences as opposed to like specific itineraries.
Absolutely incredible information there. So, Elliot, that's actually a really great segue because you talked about start early. Would love to get the notes on the business before we grab those. For you, what would be the most ideal time frame to have to work with a couple looking to plan their honeymoon out and start their points to miles journey? So they're brand new, they've never racked up a single point. What is that ideal timeline that you would like to work with them versus maybe someone that's been listening to this show for the last year and they've already started to rack up points, so they're already in the world, but they are trying to figure out how they can work with someone to help them plan their honeymoon, right? So it's probably two different time frames there, but we'd love to get a good idea for someone that's interested in contacting you.
Yeah, really, the earlier the better. We'll find ways to give you massive value at any point in the journey, assuming that you're flexible. But like as soon after you're engaged as possible is a great time because then you've got all of your wedding planning ahead of you and you can maximize all of those wedding expenses for earning big welcome bonuses. Um, and if we're talking in terms of time frame, that's like most people tend to get engaged these days, like a year plus out from the actual wedding date. So like 9 to 12 months before your wedding is a great time or is an optimal time to get started. But like if you say our wedding's in a month and we're open to taking a honeymoon 6 months from now, that's still perfectly fine. Yeah. So hackmyhoneymoon.com is the best way. If you want to see us on social media and get some more of these kinds of tips, I'm at Rosenberg on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. I'm more or less posting daily there, new tips and videos. And the way that the services work is really we take you through the entire process, end to end, starting with just understanding your travel goals, preferences, and financial situation, and crafting a points earning strategy around that and your wedding journey. So ultimately, once you've earned the points, helping you to book everything with the highest value. And if you don't want to get in the weeds of like transferring your points and searching for availability on your own, and if you are willing to just give us access to your accounts, we can do it for you. If not, no problem. We'll explain exactly what you need to do after we do all the research and find the availability. And ultimately, even after your trip is done, we will help you to avoid or reduce the annual fees on a lot of the premium cards that you probably would have signed up for, assuming that they're no longer serving you. And we can move on to new cards to plan your next honeymoon.
So, Elliot, what's the cost for your services? If a couple wanted to work with you, what would be your fee for you to work with them and walk them through this process? Is it kind of a flat fee, or is there a range depending on how much handholding they want or need?
So as of now, we have two components for the kind of typical end-to-end journey of everything that I just mentioned. And the first is an upfront $150 where we're going to help you pick destinations or experiences that are well suited to using points and the financial situation and wedding planning situation that you're in. And then we are going to craft a points earning strategy. So that's what happens in the beginning. And then you have all this time where we're helping you to maximize your points earning. And then once it's time to actually book, we will find the best value for your points aligned with the experience you want to have. And we charge a percentage of the savings that you would be getting. So let's say that flights and hotels together for your honeymoon are costing $10,000. And after using points, it's gonna, just for the sake of math, we'll say it'll be free. It might not always be exactly free, but we'll say it's $0. So you would save 90%. So $9,000 is yours, and our commission would be 10% or $1,000. And that comes at the time of booking. Yeah.
Okay, very cool. So that's a really unique way of doing it. Perfect. So we'll link your website. We'll link all of your social media handles in the show notes so the listeners can get a chance to easily get access to you there.
and take a listen or take a look at what you have to offer and get a little bit more information on your services and check out your videos as well on social media. Before we wrap this one up, Elliot, question for you and your wife: any future travel destinations that you guys have on the docket, or any bucket list destinations that you're really planning to knock out, use some points and miles, or have some incredible redemptions in mind to utilize?
Yeah, we just booked Alila Jabal Akhtar. I don't know if I'm saying that right, in Oman. I think you were in Oman recently. I don't know if you stayed there. That's in the mountains. Okay. That's a Hyatt property, so we just booked that for December, and then we're going to Tanzania in February for the South Serengeti, so Ngorongoro National Park, and Zanzibar. And then I'm also looking at Seychelles at the Waldorf Astoria Platte Island Private Island Resort. Has its own landing strip on the island. Looks absolutely epic. Opened recently, and that should hopefully be in March. So those are on the docket in the next few months.
Wow, you just listed some incredible places. I've seen the Alila there in Oman. Didn't stay there. We actually stayed in the Grand Hyatt Muscat, which again, another Hyatt property.
Yeah, I've stayed there before.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful hotel. Oman's one of my top 5 countries. I'd say probably for Taryn and myself, and I
Underrated for sure.
absolutely underrated. It's an amazing country with an amazing people. So I'm super excited that you're one of the few listeners that or not listeners, but guests that I've had that I think have been to Oman as well. So the fact that you've already been there and you can co-sign that statement is awesome.
Yeah, went there once, going back. Liked it that much.
That's great. And the Waldorf Astoria, that sounds like an incredible destination as well. I'm gonna have to put that on my list of places to look into also. So that's really cool. So Elliot, a couple last things before we wrap up here. 2 questions I always like to ask. The first one is, who else should we have on the show?
Yes, I'll give you 2. One, I may be messing up the pronunciation. Berman Samuel. Uh, just because out of anyone I've been following in the space, he has blown up the quickest on social media. I think he got like 200K followers in 2 months, which is insane. So that's super impressive. And another one I think would be really interesting for you, combining your 2 professions together of wealth management, financial planning, and points and miles, would be Kai from the Daily Churn. I don't know if you listen to that podcast, but he goes far beyond credit cards into things like brokerage accounts, meal kits, SIM cards, lots of other stuff, and he is all about FIRE, financial independence, retire early, which I'm sure a lot of your listeners would know about or already be pursuing. But he is doing churning FIRE. So he's actually generating income using churning as a revenue maker. So really, really interesting perspective there.
Interesting. I'm gonna have to look into that. I'm familiar with fire. I'm not familiar with churning fire because in my industry, churning is a huge, like, almost a legal thing for
Negative.
for financial advisors to do, because that's the short version. That's basically a way that you
Churning as in with cards, with cards, and generating income from cards. Yeah.
got it with cards. Okay, very cool. So I'm very interested in hearing that because like churning is a huge no in my industry. So I had to clarify what that is. Perfect. Well, we'll look into both of those. Elliot, this is fantastic. Any final thoughts that we have that you had that you want to share before we wrap this up?
Yeah, I'd say like this stuff takes a long time and can be really overwhelming to figure out on your own. And obviously this is a great source of knowledge, but you've got probably dozens of hours of content just on this one podcast, and that's going to be just scratching the surface. So, if you're not looking to dedicate dozens of hours just to learn the basics and then still have the risk of screwing something up in terms of credit or finance or your trip, then look at experts who can actually charge you a small fee to save you a ton of time and headache and risk, whether it's something like an award booking that's too complicated for you to figure out, or planning an entire honeymoon. You don't have to do it all by yourself.
Love that advice. That works absolutely in the points and miles world. That honestly works also in my world as a financial advisor as well. A lot of what I do, people can do on their own, but most people don't want to take the time to study, figure out the markets, tax efficiency. Should I be funding this or that or withdraw from that? And they want an expert. And I think it works the same exact way in the points and miles world as well. They can find experts like yourself to really walk them through it, handhold them. And it's key, I think, that you started with a very important piece, which I do on the financial planning side as well, which is you start by listening, right? You get an understanding of what their goals are, what their objectives are, their means. You want to understand all the things instead of saying, well, hey, all of my clients go here, so you should too. You start by getting a great understanding of what they're wanting to accomplish. I think that's a phenomenal way to really, as you said, be a boutique firm, or not firm, but business that allows people to be able to really fulfill their honeymoon dreams or probably exceed them because of what you're able to accomplish and save for them.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Elliot, thank you so much for your time today. For the listeners out there, make sure to connect with Elliot, especially if you want help hacking your own honeymoon. Make sure to give him a follow, check out his website. And as always, please don't forget to subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already. Give us a rating if you're finding content and stories and information like what Elliot just provided helpful. Please give us a rating, give us a review, and don't forget to tell your friends. If you have friends that are getting married, they're getting engaged, they have a wedding coming up, they tell you we're trying to plan a honeymoon, Elliot is the one that you want to put them in touch with, because I promise you he's going to change their honeymoon perspective and revolutionize their honeymoon journey. And as always, we'll see you on the next episode. Take care, everybody.